Well, hey church, thanks for joining us today as we look again at these four guys who gave us accounts of Jesus' life and ministry as we know him in the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In our previous video we talked a little bit about Matthew, and today we're going to talk about the Gospel according to Mark. Well, first, who is this guy, Mark? We would know him in the King James Version as Marcus. His given name is John Mark. And what we know about him is he was known as the Evangelist, Mark the Evangelist. And he's also the same John Mark who traveled with Paul and Barnabas on missionary journeys. And at some point he had a dispute with Paul and was asked not to come back on the journeys with them, and they would later reconcile, which is the neat full circle of that. But he's also known for having a pretty cool mom, and again, her name's Mary, like everybody else in the New Testament. But it was a house that was prominent. It seemed to be that John Mark came from some influence, or at least some riches, and they would open up their home often to Christians to gather, and especially to gather and pray. So that's kind of a neat sidelight. Peter, the apostle, also was close to Mark, mentioning him in his letter as his son, and more of a friendly overtone because he was close to John Mark and helped him quite a bit in his ministry. Church tradition, interestingly enough, would have Mark going down to Egypt and being a part of the Coptic church. They would claim him as their founder, and it's where he started the church and actually had a tragic death, a martyrdom death, with some non-Christians who drug him with horses to his death. So a gruesome story, but it shows that Mark was faithful to the end. Some of his writings in particular are focused on the Romans and Roman Christians. So he wrote exclusively in his gospel to the church in Rome. And that's really why he has a lot of his themes of the cross and persecution and martyrdom and suffering, things his readers would be interested in. And it seems to be that he wrote during the time of perhaps the burning of Rome or the persecution of the Jews, and that's where it lends to maybe a later writing of the Gospel of Mark. In our first video in Matthew, we looked at the thought that maybe Mark was written first and Matthew and Luke were kind of using Mark as a template. But here, maybe it was the other way around. That's something interesting to discuss. But again, some would say that maybe even John Mark was not the author, but he penned the gospel, and Peter actually told him what to write. And that's kind of an interesting thought as you look at least Peter was influencing Mark as he wrote. But church history would have John Mark as the author. Mark's gospel, if you've dug into it, is a hard-hitting, fast-paced account of Jesus, and it's action-packed, and you got to buckle up when you're reading the Gospel of Mark. And in it, he uses words like immediately, and he moves from one story to the next. He uses this conjunction and over again to compile story upon story, so his readers are engaged. So it's a fun, quick read. But in all, this account of Jesus is a wonderful one, full of details, as only Mark could do it, because that's what kind of guy he was. What else we learn about Mark is that he had a servant's heart. He was known for being humble and for helping people and just being there for them. And he didn't care who got the credit. That's what marked John Mark. So thanks again, church, for watching. We'll see you again on our next video.